Hi, everyone, and welcome to the China EVs and More podcast, where my co-host, Lei Sheng, and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. To our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you smash those like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss anything from us in the future. My name is Tu Li. I am the managing director at NIO Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which, of course, I encourage you all to do. Waiting in anticipation to get his Tesla Model Y, Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
2 weeks. 2 weeks until delivery. Yes, good morning. This is your co-host Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode number 241. Another Friday the 13th edition.
It's Friday the 13th. Oh, yeah, it is.
Which
and it's Pi Day.
Culture,
it's Pi Day, too.
Yeah, it's right. Well, over the weekend, which in American culture is horror movie that kind of played this past week. We heard about Porsche, we heard about Volkswagen Group, we heard about Honda putting up horrific numbers, to say the least. And then there's tons of other things that went on this past week.
Stateside,
yeah. I mean, let's maybe talk about get the horrific stuff out of the way.
Okay. So Honda joined the party. They're writing a big check.
$15.7 billion. And they killed the zero EVs. It's like poetic, right? Because they named them zero EVs and they ended up not doing them. So zero. And the first loss in the company history. How old is Honda? 70 years old?
Oh, I have no idea.
Something like that.
Is that
and they've never had a loss. And you go over to Porsche, they went from 5.6 billion euro operating profit to roughly 400 million. Basically, it's almost zero. Again, because of the write-downs, right? Because of the strategic redirection of their EV strategy. I think that was alone was 2.4 billion euros. And then tariffs and all that. Volkswagen Group, their operating profit went from 19 billion, reduced by 10 billion euros in 2025 to just under 9 billion euros. Are the worst over? That's my question.
Not according to Lighters, because he's forecasting, or Porsche is forecasting in the China market, that they're going to get down as low as 30,000 units.
Well,
that's a mighty fall.
What we do know is on the Volkswagen Group side, their share of the proportionate operating profit from China dipped below 1 billion euros in 2025, and they expect that to fall further to roughly 200 million to 600 million euros. So there's one indication. Volkswagen Xpeng just announced this production of AITO and X08. What they're expecting is toward Q3 and Q4, these products are supposed to ramp up, where next year their returns could be better. So I think in general, I think we know in 2020, the overall market is going to be down. The share of NEVs is going to be going up for sure. And many of these foreign automakers, they have another tough year ahead of them, if not more.
They're trying to find a bottom, and macroeconomics do not help them. But they are all hoping, including the Chinese automakers, in the China market at least, that some of these weaker players throughout the course of this year, 2026, leave the market and create more opportunity for them in 2027 and beyond. Now, again, we talked about consolidation. We're talking about weaker players leaving the market. But we then point back to NIO's earnings and how they seem to be very bullish on 2026. And one thing that really stood out to me is that the 5 and 7 seat luxury premium large SUVs in the second half of 2025 grew 350%.
Yes. So NIO and Li Auto earnings were this past week on Monday and a couple of days ago. NIO, okay, right? So they had a profitable Q4 and their target this year is full year non-GAAP operating profit. Big goal, okay? And they're expecting 40 to 50% growth on top of the 320,000 units, which gives them to roughly just under 500,000. Tall order. I mean, the first quarter, okay, we know it's slow. And NIO, I feel like they're becoming more and more of an SUV driven. I think for a few reasons. First of all, he's SUV driven because the market wants them. Second, because they're more profitable models. But I think on the flip side, I'm just a little worried that because this year, these bigger SUVs are a lot competitive than last year. Because almost every other competitor are launching these similar large SUVs. So it's not going to be
newsletter, I made a brief list just off the top of my head. So AITO M9, Denza N9, Xpeng GX, BYD U8, Zeekr's 9X. So that's just off the top of my head.
Just pull them together into the 789s because all of these models have these numbers in them, 789s, and including the foreign ones, right? Buick is launching one of their bigger cars. Nissan, Wei, V9X, ArcFox, the Datang, which we talked about last week, right? So I think the EA, Envoy L80, and the ES7, they expect these, along with the ESA and Envoy L90, to be significant portion of their sales this year. So roughly the 460, 70,000. I mean, I'd imagine at least 2/3 will be SUVs.
And honestly, I will add an asterisk to your statement about NIO becoming an SUV company. I think they're going to drive a lot of their profits from SUVs, but they are also a small mass market car brand now with Envo and Firefly to a lesser extent. That's going to drive a lot of their flexibility. If they can keep a lot of that volume in order to keep the capacity utilization high at their factories, that creates more flexibility for them on the SUV side.
Yeah. And most likely the ESA is going to probably shatter the record for that vehicle in that segment, how fast it gets to 100,000 deliveries. So 80,000 is coming pretty soon. So that was since September.
NIO is looking for some pretty healthy growth in 2026.
Yes. But I think the Envoy L90 all of a sudden has been rather, I don't want to say disappointment, but compared to the ES8, it's falling off. The sales are falling off for some reason. So that shows you it's how long does the ES8 continue this run? It's also a question.
Especially with a new L7, L9 coming on board.
And then on the other side, Li Auto, right, their targets grow 20%, which get them to also the same target that NIO is shooting. Although Li Auto is profitable as a company, a full year, they were still profitable. They were profitable in Q4, but they had a loss in Q3. It looks like they're...
What a difference a year makes, because this time last year, Li Auto could do no wrong. Their sales were great. Their revenues were great. Now, 2025 was just not a great year for them. Full stop in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I mean, the i8 and then the i6, the L series went down big time. And now they're relaunching the L9 as this first of their newer E-Revs. And plus, they want to get i6 to like 20,000 units a month. Li Xiang, he's like, we're going to go back to an entrepreneurial style management where they're giving autonomy to these store managers. He said something in the earnings call which want these people, the store managers, to become millionaires. So it has to deal with their sales, their channel structure, and on top the models that they're launching, the new generation of these crazy tech, right? All by wire chassis, 360-degree LiDAR, embodied AI SUVs, right? He's saying we're gonna, disrupt the tech again, but other people are trying to do the same.
Yeah. There's a window of maybe 60 to 90 days for any company to come out with something that's not in the market yet. Because from a roadmap standpoint, you better believe that these companies have it in their roadmap. They might not launch it first, but within a couple of months, there's one or two companies that also have it as part of their feature set for their products. Case in point, Lei, I was just reading that, the Seagull has LiDAR, which is a $10,000 car. The L60 is going to 100,000 RMB, whatever. The L60 Envo is going to have LiDAR now, and that's a 20-something $1,000 car when you get battery swap. So BYD started to trend, and that has now bled over to a lot of other mass market brands that need to put LiDAR on their lowest priced products.
Yeah, Huawei launching the A96 line LiDAR a couple of weeks ago. Seagull, 70,000 RMB, $10,000 EV with LiDAR, right? So it's just a matter of time that comes out.
I don't feel like things are slowing down at all. We just get bombarded with announcements. Yeah, the SU7, the refresh SU7 is going to start delivering.
Moved up the launch of the SU7 to this month. It was supposed to be in April.
They see opportunity. I think that does not bode well for the Model 3. So my guess is we'll see some sort of promotion from Tesla in China to try to hold on to some sales for the Model 3.
Yeah, but Tesla is a Model Y market.
I don't know how Tesla in general, by the end of this year, their vehicles will look fairly analog to whatever is out there, just because I don't believe the 3 and Y are going to see any type of significant refresh or additional features in 2026.
Yeah. I think they're going to still continue to tweak the financing deals, giving extra money for paint, for insurance, that type of thing to stay relevant. There are still relevant. Model Y is one of the top selling models. But I think the U7 has been the top selling model for the first 2 months of this year, I believe.
For the B segment crossover SUV, which is where the Model Y sits and the ES6 sits.
So this is all in anticipation of Beijing Auto Show coming up in 5 weeks or 5 or 6 weeks. A lot of fireworks.
I'm starting to get pictures from my friends in Shanghai about the F1 that's happening. I'm a little bummed. I was thinking about going, but it doesn't make sense for me to go and then come back and then go again in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's always... They moved it to March this year. It's usually in April, but...
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Last year was in March, right? Yeah. Usually coincides with the Shanghai and Beijing auto shows, but... Yeah, I mean, that's an opportunity for these... branding to the Cadillac. Cadillac is now in F1, right? They're doing it,
Those folks that aren't very knowledgeable about F1, me being one of them, let me be the first to volunteer and identify as a novice on F1. Ford is back in because they are supplying hybrid engines to Red Bull. So they don't have a team. And Cadillac is in with a team and a car, but they're using Ferrari engines. They will use the Cadillac engine, I think, in 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
God bless it. And I've mentioned this before in past podcasts. There's a podcast called Acquired. The latest podcast they had, it's 4 hours long. It's about F1. And for those people that want to understand companies, tech companies in particular, but also they've done sports leagues. So they've done an NFL, they've done a international, the Premier Cricket League in India. Very, 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 very great podcast that I can wholeheartedly recommend. I'm a nerd. And when I'm driving, I put it at 1.3 speed and just listen. My sons are like, I don't want to listen to this.
Yeah. Even my daughter is a big fan of F1.
So, and Cadillac has a Chinese driver.
Yeah, 周冠宇.
So
Reserve driver.
Right. There was a lot of complaints from the star drivers about the engine and the battery. And so I'm all for it.
New rules, right? 50-50 split between the ICE engine and batteries. So that's a new rule which benefits Mercedes significantly this year because they have the history of these prowess in developing this hybrid powertrain. So,
yeah, it's a fun time right now in Shanghai, according to, from the pictures that I'm getting from my friends. And so God bless it because, Shanghai was always a little bit better off than Beijing post-COVID. But it's good to see that some of the energy is coming back to the city of Shanghai. But let me throw you a curveball, Lei. You probably know about the R2 now and the Lucid Investor Day.
I'm a bit FOMOing right now because I still have the R2 on order. I haven't canceled it.
Maybe your wife needs a new car.
No, the performance package with the launch edition, that's not something that I want. I want something, the 45,000, good value.
No,
cool.
So that's a bait and switch. Did you see that? So they have a 48,000, has a larger battery and more range, and then the 45,000 is a smaller battery with less range. So why would you spend the extra 3,000? They added that 45,000 because I can't imagine they're going to get too many orders for that. Maybe as a fleet vehicle, but I think they couldn't hit that $45,000 target, so they added this SKU, this low-end SKU, to do that.
When the R2 was announced 2 years ago, this is our 45,000. But that's the only thing that kind of turns me off a little bit. But I think it's a great option for the American consumers, other than Model Y, other than some of these other ones.
There was only so much time there was only so long that Tesla was going to have no competition, like actual products that were good, because you could technically say they have competition currently, but the vehicles and the products aren't great relative to what Tesla has on offer from a tech stack. FSD alone is a reason to get into a Tesla, even if you think the interior is a little bit conservative. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was one of them. I just wasn't ready to spend $8,000 a lease vehicle that I wasn't sure I was going to keep. And I'm all in on the U.S. market. I'm not as confident in some of the legacy automaker products because we've heard promises from them about, and in Ford's case, the UEV. I've read a lot about the Bolt recently, the updated Bolt, and that's gotten a lot of great reviews. It's a $30,000 car without any subsidies. You and I have children or kids that are close to driving age. So the last thing I want is to give them a huge car so 18 of their friends can get in the car with them and distract them while they're driving. So I want something small and safe that will get them around, because my oldest is going to be the Uber driver eventually for my youngest.
Arthur, I think everything looks great. Aside from kind of the pricing a bit, the car is great, the UI is great. I've test driven the R1S. It's a right size vehicle. I think the only thing left that's a bottleneck is manufacturing production, right? They have the capacity, 150,000 capacity. How do they ramp to that volume, 100,000 units? Well, I'm not even sure if they can get to
Normal actually has 200. Normal has 200,000 units of capacity. Right. So let's say 30, 40 R1s are, annual sales, 30, 40,000. But like, again, an R1 is $90,000, like $90,000. It's unbelievable. High runner, the R2 is likely still over $50,000. It's not going to be the $40,000, $45,000. It's going to be likely the $53,000 trim package, which is still, again, over $50,000. And so it doesn't help bring down the average MSRP in the United States.
Well, the argument could also be made is $45,000 2 years ago, now the $50,000 or more, maybe, because of the inflation and all that's going on, gas prices. Yeah.
As adults, as someone younger, my younger self, I didn't really pay attention to a lot of what was going on in the rest of the world until I moved to like California and then moved to China. So I got a great grounding on what happens in the United States affects Europe, China, and vice versa. And so the Iran war is really, it could be such a change agent for sentiment about gas-powered cars, about all these things, because once we get over $3.50, close to $4 gas price, we're going to see a mass exodus likely of Tahoe buyers, Expedition buyers. Will they get into EVs or will they go into hybrids from the Koreans and the Japanese? Don't know. But we're still early into the Iran war, and I'm hopeful, and I'm sure you are too, that it doesn't last very long. And we're kind of back to normal in the next 12, 14 months.
It affects all of us, right? Everyday gas prices, flights. We were just talking about it. The price is going up by the hour.
And
I'm glad I got my ticket to Beijing a couple of months ago.
Well,
for only 4,000.
Think about it, Lei. So petrol and petroleum is used in plastics, and so it's not just gas. Yeah. It's part component pricing that's going to change. Aluminum. I didn't realize this until Joe White told me that I think 20% of our aluminum comes from, or some significant number comes from the Middle East. Because, and then that Strait of Hormuz, 20% of all the oil goes through that strait of the world's oil. So if you used to have 100 units of capacity and you take out 20 units of capacity, that drives, simple supply and demand. You continue to have the same amount of demand, and you economics 101, what's going to happen? The price is going to go up. And, not to mention just people in harm's way. That seems really tragic as well. Anyways, but what about Lucid?
Yeah, Lucid. I mean, great. The fact that Rivian and Lucid on the same day are announcing their next generation of products, even if it's on paper, right? If it's on a PowerPoint, they're due. I mean, the American consumers, they lack these affordable, what I call them tech-forward, feature-rich EVs, competitive. So the Earth and the other ones, the Cosmos, and one more are those that are coming probably next year, maybe, or the year after. Still have to wait a bit.
And I love that.
I think Lucid is betting on robotaxis as their additional revenue stream.
But I also love the fact that Lucid and Rivian sit in such different positioning in the market. And I believe that their technology is pretty significant and can hold its own against the Chinese. But you had mentioned this earlier. Can they block and tackle? Can they build? Can they build at speed? Can they reduce their pricing as volume increases? These are all questions that need to be answered because up till now, Lucid and Rivian had sales challenges. So look at NIO in the past. You and I, 4 years ago when we started this podcast, we questioned they don't know how to sell cars. And with Rivian and Lucid, price is a big determinant of why they can't sell in volume. But part of their responsibility is to get really good at manufacturing, even at smaller volumes, so they could drive some of that price down, drive some of that cost down, and then pass it on to consumers. But these MSRPs have kind of stayed the same. With Rivian, it's actually gone higher, and that's a little bit crazy. So Lucid's e-motors are great. I think the battery technology is pretty significant, and Rivian is really leaning into its autonomy plus.
Yeah, same. Lucid, I mean, they were going big on consumer level 2, level 3, level 4, they have a roadmap, right, of these vehicles that you can buy, similar to Xpeng, right? They're launching these robo versions that you can buy that have L3 and L4 capability, as opposed to a robotaxi. So that's another bet. They're just doing what the Chinese have done, basically. Same for Volkswagen. We talked about earlier in the show of this ID Unix 08. I mean, all of the spec and features are just following the Chinese, that they have to have them.
I know we're jumping around a little bit, but let me ask you, Lei, Leiter's comments about we're going to launch higher price SKUs. Do you think that's a winning strategy for Porsche?
Yeah. Mark Leiter is the new CEO of Porsche. Yeah.
Started in January.
Yeah.
He's ex-Porsche.
It's weird not seeing Oliver Bloom front and center, because he's been the CEO of a Porsche since 2015. So it's a little bit weird and getting used to. But, well, their goal is actually to reduce SKU, right? But at the same time, go higher up positioning-wise. So another sports car model above the 911, something like that. Another SUV model above the Cayenne.
Which is weird because the Cayenne EV is well over $100,000 MSRP. Oh,
well, they can't go down. They can't have a one below 718. That's not going to work, because they can't be profitable on that. So the only way to go is go up.
If Porsche doesn't get its act together, they have probably 5 years in Europe. And then United States, they probably have 5, 6, 7 years because of the Chinese, for sure.
And we just heard about Stellantis possibly offloading Maserati to
thoughts on that?
Yeah, possibly to one of these Chinese companies. BYD and Xiaomi are in the rumors.
That's the only way this makes sense. Partnerships with Stellantis do not make sense to me because they have Leapmotor.
Yeah.
And they need to extract all the value they can from Leapmotor before they start partnering with another Chinese brand. So if this is Xpeng and BYD kicking the tires on buying a European brand, all for it, because Stellantis has too many. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And at the same time, some of these Chinese companies have too many brands as well.
Oh, for sure. But I've always talked about this where it's like, okay, we have a weak brand, legacy brand that has a decent manufacturing footprint. Okay, let's buy the brand and for the assets, not for the actual brand. But be careful of what you wish for, because Maserati is an Italian brand. So that likely means Italian unions. Are the Chinese ready to deal with that kind of stuff? I would argue they don't want to deal with that stuff. Just like in the United States, they probably prefer to build outside of the Midwest, where the UAW is very strong. If Stella Lee also talked about BYD building in Canada, she doesn't want a partner, but if you build in Canada, you're going to deal with the Canadian auto workers, because we need to point down to Brazil and the challenges they had building that factory in Brazil in 2024. So there's going to be growing pains from these Chinese companies for sure. And in the China market, they can kind of brute force and force the corrections in place. But in Europe and North America, United States, in a few years, there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing behind the scenes, and then politicking in the media and in the public sphere to get people and folks on your side. And that's going to be new to the Chinese players.
This year, we can anticipate Stellantis, they're going to have their general meeting or capital markets day or something coming up in a couple of months. They probably will make a decision. We may be seeing some announcement. The BYD Canada article news from Bloomberg, right, about what they want to do in Canada. We may be hearing some announcement this year. Welcoming red carpet rolls out for the Chinese EVs. And then end of this month, the Xi-Trump meeting, what comes out of that, given the current global mess that's happening.
Well, there's a chance that it doesn't happen, because of the Iran war. I know the Chinese still wants Trump to visit, but...
Well, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi, he said we have to prepare thoroughly in advance for this to happen.
And one thing I will say about the Canada thing, I spoke recently to David Kennedy from the Automotive News Toronto bureau chief, and he said that they're trying to fast track homologation, and there are Chinese brands actively talking to dealership groups, service companies. My guess is that we see a Chinese vehicle on Canadian roads by the end of this year. And one of the biggest differences is that in 2026, there will be no cap on price. So it doesn't have to meet that $35,000 threshold. And that's not the MSRP, by the way. That's the landed ship costs. So the Chinese can add margin to that.
Sure.
But there's going to be a limit grandfathered in. So 27, 28, 29, they'll be much more restrictive on that MSRP or that pricing, the landed cost. So it does create an opportunity for some of the more premium automakers to be aggressive and come early. So think Zeekr, think BYD, Fangchongbao, Yangwang, because it's those 3 or 4 companies that have the capabilities, the capital to enter Canada.
Yeah. Well, for Li Auto, I mean, they're not going to go to Canada, most likely not this year. But one of their biggest things revealed at the earnings call was their globalization kicks up a notch this year, because out of those 400,000 some units target sales, I'd say more significant portion are probably will be exported.
So I get pictures from random people. They send me pictures of Chinese cars, and there's some Li Autos in like Kazakhstan or some like these weird countries because they get them via gray market. And we always have to remember that Li Auto, the L series vehicles are all EREVs. So it makes a lot more sense for Li Autos to be exported and used in foreign markets where they're not officially even entered yet. Because you could just pour gasoline into the engine, whereas a battery electric vehicle, if you don't have grid, it makes a lot less sense to buy a vehicle that's not supported or officially entered into that market. I don't really have anything else, man. I had a long rant about the big SUV thing. So,
well, we talked about NIO, Li Auto. This past week also were the annual press conferences from Volkswagen, BMW. Renault launched their future-ready strategy. And it's interesting that their CTO talked about the ACDC, which is the Advanced China Development Center, and the role that plays for a company like Renault, which doesn't operate vehicle production and sales in China, but they depend China to develop their next generation of EV products at China's speed. So that's a very interesting tactic, if you want to call it a light asset model, that you still have to depend on China even if you don't produce there. And that's the way that Renault has played it. That was quite interesting.
One thing that I think is really clear is that across the board, whether it's through the media or official announcements, virtually every foreign automaker has either been in talks or have already partnered with a Chinese automaker outside of China. We know that they have joint ventures in China, but virtually every automaker, with the exception of GM, I haven't heard that many things about GM outside of the China market talking or kicking the tires. But this tells you that the automakers realize how far behind they are. They're starting to realize how far behind they are. And this is likely the only strategy that will keep them from bottoming out in their most important markets.
And here's
with the exception of the US.
Right? So Geely's, the GASD that they announced at the CES, now they just received a EU certification, which will be used and supplied into Geely, Zeekr, Lincoln Co. models in the European market. So that's a interesting thing, because how do these Chinese tech go outside of China? That's one example. LiDARs, we talked about LiDARs, right? Rivian has been kind of mum on this RoboSense LiDAR. Nothing was talked about there. When does that happen? Lucid, right? Lucid uses RoboSense LiDAR.
I actually wouldn't be surprised if Lucid could license some of their technology, e-motor, battery technology, to some Chinese brands. I think Lucid's technology stack is pretty significant.
Likewise for NIO, right? Their proprietary e-motor.
E-motors, yeah.
Right, e-motors, right? They've iterated many generations. Their Shenji, they're launching a second generation, which is going to be a lower cost, and they're looking for external customer. And those are in discussions to find a chip for ADAS.
Hot off the press, Lei.
Yeah.
BYD's, this is on Car News China, our friend Jiri. BYD's new Fangchongbao TI3 launches with flash charging, starting at $22,000.
Yeah, it's one of the 11 that they announced a couple of weeks ago, right?
So we can get flash charging at $22,000.
You know,
beat that, Legacy Auto.
This charging, bickering, and swapping between BYD and NIO are, I feel, a little bit overblown, because in the future, supposedly NIO can charge as much as they can at their own and also at BYD flash charging, because they're open to other partners. And 80% or more of NIO's chargers are charging other brands. I think we often forget that NIO, they often stress that they're upgradable, swappable, chargeable. And I just wish, like, in the future, the BYDs can swap NIO stations and NIOs can be charged at BYD's flash charging. This is my wish.
I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
Why can't it be?
I don't think that's wishful. I think that's fantasy.
Fantasy. Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I like to have fantasies.
I think Tesla has a better chance of adopting swapping than BYD does.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah.
Anyways.
Because Li Bin, he's quite a few times on the record, he's like, no matter how fast you flash charge, you're not going to beat a battery swap.
So now starts anyways, our heavy travel time for me. So I might be in DC in 2 weeks, then I'll be in San Francisco, and then I'll be in Beijing. So anyways, I don't have anything else, man. I don't have any comments. There are no comments. So unless you have anything you want to talk about?
No. It's a quick one today. Quicker than our past ones.
Everyone, we will see you all next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And hopefully Lei will give us an update on his Model Y.
2 weeks.
Did you buy a Tesla charger yet?
All I need is a mobile connector.
Yeah, that's right. I keep on forgetting you already have a charger.
I actually had an electrician come over and assess, and he said, you're all set. You just get a mobile connector and plug into the 240 outlet.
Got it. Okay. Everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will talk with you all next week.
Bye.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Li, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China EVs and more.